need. They never pooled it and divided it up equally. There are always going to be those who have and those who don't, and the folks in between. Now remember, everything on the earth is God's. Everything. Every natural component of the material world belongs to the Creator who made it and owns it. He brought it into existence, and He is the one who will take it out of existence when He uncreates the universe. In the meantime, it is His. Now, He knows that it provides a tremendous treasure for man to use. And He goes a step further in Deuteronomy 8:18 and says, I am going to give power to people to make wealth. So God has not only created the wealth in His creation, but He is the one who, by virtue of how He has made you and me, has given us the ability to gain wealth. He's made some of us capable mentally, some of us capable physically, some of us capable relationally, at all different levels so that we can attain wealth. He has made the wealthy people able to attain wealth. He is the one who gave them the mental capacity. He is the one who creates the circumstances of life. You're born into a certain family, and that family is poor, and so that creates a certain legacy for you. You're born into a certain family, and it's rich. That creates a different legacy, but it's all in the providences of God, where you're born, to what family, in what environment. God is in control of all of those circumstances. God is still in charge, and God has ordained that the poor you will always have with you, but there is going to be a distribution of wealth. The great resources that God put in the earth, He knew they would go somewhere to someone. That's a part of it. I believe God has created the human being unique so that he can do marvelous things. Some can make music, and by it they can gain wealth. Some can paint great pictures, and by it they gain wealth. Some have minds that are mathematically capable so that they can invent things, and scientifically capable so that they can discover things and accumulate wealth. Some are tremendous at moving groups of people so they can build great corporations and empires. Those are all things within the framework of God's creative purpose as He takes what is His and distributes it among humankind according to their several and different abilities by virtue of His creation and His providence. But it's all His. In 1 Corinthians 4:7, the question is asked, and what do you have that you did not receive? And the answer is nothing. It's all God's. God distributes it, and God distributes it to whomever He will, however He desires. And that distribution is within the framework of His creative purpose and His providence. And that, in a nutshell, if you will, is why I do not accept a communistic or a highly socialistic approach to mankind's life. Because I do not believe God ever intended everybody to be the same and possess the same. I believe God has designed people very unique. Everyone is an individual, and the distribution of wealth in the providence of God and the purposes of God is scattered across humanity, and by virtue of the unique ways in which God has made men. Any more than God wanted a brown world where all the flowers were one color. So God has given this power to get wealth, and all that comes is really His. Everything is His. Everything is His. All of it is His. And He has distributed it, and listen to this, He has distributed it as a stewardship. It then becomes a test of one's morality. In itself, it's not moral. What you do with it determines that. I have in my hand a few dollars. In a very real sense, these dollars have no morality at all. But what I do with them could have significant moral implications, right? What I purchase with them, what I do with them. Now, let me remind you of a principle in 1 Timothy 6:17. A passage talking about material wealth, talking about money. And it says this, God gives us richly all things to enjoy. I think that's so practical. God gives us richly all things to enjoy. God wants you to just enjoy them. It's not wrong when you get a new couch. It's not wrong when you get a new car. It's not wrong when you take a vacation and when you go to visit with friends you love on the East Coast, or spend a little time to watch the leaves turn in the Carolinas, or you go up to the mountains to ski and enjoy your children and the beauty of God's wonderful creation. Why do you think He made a world like this? He wanted us to enjoy it. It's not wrong when you enjoy the beautiful color expressed in new clothes that you purchase. It's not in itself wrong. God has given us richness to be able to enjoy the things that He's put in His world. He's not a cosmic killjoy. He's not trying to rain on your parade. He's not a browbeating ogre who wants to cause you nothing but pain and misery. He's given you all of this ability to make wealth. He's given you all of the circumstance so that you have these things. And He knows that there is in His world a tremendous, tremendous opportunity to enjoy what He's made. And He expects you to enjoy that. And in the enjoying of it, thank Him for it. I can do that, can't you? I can thank God for the wonders and the beauty that I see. I can thank God for a comfortable chair and a comfortable place to study and do my work. I can thank God for the wonder of His creation, for a little granddaughter in a pretty dress. I can thank God for any of that. God is not selfish. And He wants you to use the money to enjoy what He's made and enjoy what He's provided. As long as you give Him the glory and as long as you don't become indulgent and self-centered. Now, I realize some of you are in the pit of debt, and you're going to have to get out over the long haul, and that's a tragedy of its own character, but you have to recognize that as a major spiritual problem and begin to deal with it. Riches can significantly obstruct spirituality, and they certainly do demonstrate where you are in your spiritual life. So the morality of money is something to consider. It is a barometer of your moral life, your spiritual life. Let me talk for a brief few moments on the love of money, the second point. The love of money. This is how we regard money. And when I say the love of money, I don't mean you take out money and say, oh, money, money, I love you, you know. The love of money simply means an inordinate attachment to it. Simply means that you are driven to attain it. 1 Timothy 6:10, the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil. The love of money is a root of all sorts of evil. You know, you're around money all the time, so it's easy to love it. I mean, it's there all the time. It is a powerful and constant part of our lives. We're never away from money matters. It's so easy to become completely enamored with money. What do you mean by that? Well, take it in the language of 1 Timothy 6:17. Instruct those who are rich in this present world. It's fine to be rich, but instruct them not to be conceited. And that is proud about their station in life, proud about their possessions, or to fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God. You know you love money when you pursue money, not God. When you can't say, Psalm 42 said, as the deer pants after the water brook, so pants my soul after thee, O God. But in all honesty, you'd have to say, as the deer pants after the water brook, so pants my soul after money. Is that what drives you? That's real.
You know what? Growth is chosen. Not change. Change will slap you right in the back of your head. Change will kick you right, anyway, change will kick you in the shin. I'm editing as I go. I'm editing the sermon for consumption for the mass market. But growth is chosen. Growth is chosen. And in the moment, he has a decision to make, and so do you. And so did the Hebrew Christians. Do we outgrow what we've known so we can become who we really are? And Moses didn't even do it the right way. In fact, in Acts chapter 7, it tells us that one day when he was 40 years old, this is Stephen giving us this information, he decided to visit his own people, the Israelites, and he saw one of them being mistreated by an Egyptian. So he went to his defense and avenged him by killing the Egyptian. Well, that's one way to do it. You know, he feels something on the inside. He knows that he's not what he's around. He understands that there's something different in him than the people, the culture he's surrounded in. So he does something out of his impulse that is really an indication of his destiny, and he kills an Egyptian. And verse 25 really got my attention. Moses thought that his own people would realize that God was using him to rescue them, but they didn't. So now we understand what it means to say that Moses chose to be misunderstood rather than to give up who he was. Grow up. Grow up. Why Are we still in 7th grade? And we are 53 years old. And we still filter the majority of our decisions through what will other people think about this. We spend money with that filter. We say things with that filter. We don't say things with that filter. Now, I think it's important to consider what others will think about things. I do. I think that's why you brush your teeth. That's why you make sure when you go out in the morning, like there's a smile on your face. That's a good thing to think how your life is affecting others. But I don't think you should be controlled by it. Not as grown as you are. Are you really so grown in your body, but so small in your spirit that one person's opinion can move you off your purpose? You are much too grown at this stage in your life to be taking your cues from a culture that doesn't even know Christ. And our growth has been so stunted, and I'm going to tell you why. Because mostly what we have been taught is sin suppression. We have not been taught transformative thinking. We have been taught push it down and don't do that where anybody can see you. And don't tell anyone how it really is. So we push things down. We never deal with them. We never really know how to bring it to Jesus. And we've heard a lot about forgiveness of sin, but what about freedom from sin? What good is it for God to forgive me of sin if I'm going to live running back to the same thing that He brought me out of? So now I want to get into a section of the message. This is going to go on my YouTube channel as I stand alone. This is a little mini message within the message. I've been promising this for a long time, and I'm going to preach it right now. I want to talk to you about sins with benefits. Sit down and listen to this. In verse 25, it says, He chose the reproach of God's people, or we could say He chose the inconvenience of purpose over the pleasure of sin. Anybody who says sin doesn't feel good didn't do it right. Amen. Everybody quotes this verse to talk about how sin runs out. But here's the thing I've learned about, we could call it Egypt. We could call it the place where we go to have our needs met. If you do not appreciate and acknowledge the need that a sin is meeting, you won't know how to get that need met in God, and you will come right back to it. Now, I know how that sounds. Appreciate my sin. My sin killed Jesus. How can I appreciate my sin? I'm not talking about appreciating the consequence of it. I'm not talking about willfully rebelling against God. Even the apostle said, where sin increased, did grace that much more increase? But shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we die in sin, live any longer to it? But is the message that we're preaching in churches really helping people get free? Quit sinning. Just put it on the church sign. Yeah? Quit sinning. Quit cussing. You know what? I would rather you keep cussing and not quit growing than thinking that the whole point of the Christian faith is behavior modification. I would rather you, now this may separate some of us, because some of us may be so addicted to the gospel message of quit sinning, quit sinning, quit sinning, quit. But today I want to talk to you about the sin of quitting. The sin of quitting. Did you know that quitting is a sin? I'm not telling you not to put your resume out. Maybe you do need another job. I'm not telling you to stay in an abusive relationship. That's foolish. I want you to be safe. But to quit on what God gave you to do and the deposit that He called you to guard is the greatest sin of all. And sometimes I've had to keep crying while refusing to quit. Sometimes I've had to keep wrestling. We have an epidemic in our world today. It is the epidemic of quitters. Quick quitters. There is no value in what is lasting. The priority is what is seen. So we will quit something to appear knowledgeable rather than staying and becoming wise. It's an epidemic. We quit everything so quick. If it doesn't get 10 likes in 10 minutes, we delete it. I'm too grown to give up that easy. The Bible said Moses was grown enough to know, this is not who I am. This is not all I am. And yes, it's nice. Like, he wasn't giving up a life of poverty and failure. He was known as the grandson of Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world. And he said, I would rather give that up for what God has for me. I would rather give that up.
Be real with me in church. That's what bothers me about church, because you got to be phony and act like you've never been through nothing and act like nothing ever happened to you. And you got to wear big hats and be cute and put your finger up when you walk out. And if it's a hospital, I got to be able to show you my wounds and show you my aches and show you my legs weren't born like this. I wasn't meant to be like this, but I'm doing the best I can because somebody dropped me. I was resting in the arms of a caretaker who simply dropped me. A first boyfriend dropped me. An early teacher dropped me. Something happened in my life and dropped me. My first marriage broke up and it dropped me. And I'm having trouble getting confidence. I'm having trouble getting self-esteem. And I'm still angry. And the marriage has been over for 20 years. And I'm still mad about it because somebody dropped me. I was resting. I had no idea that they would drop me, and they dropped me. And here is what's left of my dream. Here is what's left of my goal and my ambition. And here is what's left of where I was going. I was going to the palace that David is now living in. But I had to make a U-turn and go to Lodabar. What is Mephibosheth doing in Lodabar anyway? A ghetto. The king's grandchild is living in a ghetto. He had cousins, he had uncles, he had relatives, he had aunties. But nobody wanted a crippled child. And so he went where people go when they get tired of dealing with your kind of crazy. There are some people in this room that have gone to the place where people go when they get tired of dealing with your kind of crazy. They get tired of dealing with your addiction. They get tired of dealing with your alcoholism. They get tired of your instability. They get tired of you telling lies, because people have mercy on you when you're a broken child. But when you're a broken man, they get mad. The same people who would give $20 a month to help broken children wouldn't give 10 cents to a broken man, not knowing that the broken man has a broken child down inside of it. You ain't gonna talk to me today, but I'm gonna keep on going. The same people that would have snatched up the little girl and said, oh, baby, you're so cute. Now that she's grown into a woman, she can find no compassion, because people drop you like you've already been dropped when there's something wrong with you. Because all they can do is talk about what you did, and nobody wants to dig down into your history and see why you did what you did. I wish I had a witness in here. I wish I had an ex-inmate in here. I wish I had an ex-junkie in here. I wish I had a former alcoholic in here. I wish I had somebody who's been married 3 times or 4 times in here. I wish I had somebody who wasn't worried about what these church people think. They can be real for a minute and tell them, I'm not crippled because I want to be. I'm crippled because I have to be. You don't know where I came from, and you don't know what I've been through. I was resting in the arms of a fool, and somebody, oh God, somebody dropped me, and they dropped my future, and they dropped my dreams, and they dropped my degree, and they dropped my courage, and they dropped my fight. And I moved in the Lodabar because nobody offered me any other option. And now I'm a king's kid living in a ghetto. I'm living in a place where no sheep will graze and no grass will grow. I'm living in the barrenness of my own despair. I'm making the best of a bad situation, and everybody has forgotten me. They fought wars, they've built buildings, they've laid out carpet, they've built up temples, they've erected monuments, they've subdued kingdoms, but not one person has remembered that they have a relative, a blood relative in Lodabar. I don't care what you say. Everybody in here's got somebody in your family. If it ain't you, it's somebody in your family that's been stuck down in a Lodabar situation, making the best of a bad situation. And some of you never got the love you should have got, or the touch you should have got, or the care you should have got. And you're a grown woman, and it still hurts when you think about it because somebody dropped you, and you wonder what was wrong with me that you didn't love me, and what was wrong with me that you never hugged me, and what was wrong with me that you never told me I was beautiful, and what was wrong with me that you never took me anywhere, and what was wrong with me that you made me doubt myself. And I'm grown now, but my ankles are still twisted, and I tried to overcome it, but I shut my mouth. Because every time I tried to scream, I got slapped in my mouth. Because our parents said you ought to be seen and not heard. And I moved in the Lodabar. Have you ever had to move in the Lodabar because the people around you demanded that you shut your mouth and you can't tell your story, and you're like a fish dying in a fish tank? You can't scream, you can't yell, you just boil to death in a fish tank that overheats because nobody Lodabar is a place where people move when they cannot scream. There are women in here being beaten by their husbands. There are men in here being beaten by their wives. Because he's a deacon, because he's an elder, because he's a school teacher, because he's a mayor, because he's running for office, and you're running around and your eyes are black and your lip is busted, and you're trying to give your little girl courage, but her mama is a little girl, and mama.
Story shocked the nation. The deeper I searched, the more troubling things I found.
The best lead, the best evidence, the best witness was blown off.
Listen to Paper Ghosts on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.
It's an excuse. So it could be an excuse. I just don't like using it. But another big part of your job is simply to communicate with people, and because you're representing them, so you need to communicate both up and down, right? You need to communicate their voices, what you said you would run on. So obviously, perfectly represent everybody. There's lots of Democrats in my district who don't feel that I represent them. That's fine. But I represent a majority of the people in my district. And I represent them based on what I ran on, a set of values, a set of conservative limiting principle values. And my job is to explain things better than they can themselves, which is sort of why they elect you. They're like, they kind of want you to be like them, but just explain it better. And I knew that's what I wanted, because I was never political. The first moment I got involved in politics was the moment I declared running for office. And I always knew, so I was a normal guy is my point. Like I think being involved in politics and being an activist can kind of change the way you think about politics, and I think get you detached from regular people who just aren't thinking about it all the time. But I was just one of these regular people not really thinking about it all the time. I was very interested in policy, which is slightly related but different than politics. And so the point is I was kind of a regular guy, and I knew what I wanted, and I just wanted people to explain why the hell they were doing what they were doing, and don't talk to me in talking points. And so, and to do that, you do need long form discussion. And then you got to communicate with people where they're at. So why do a podcast? Well, so I can dive deep into issues and be willing and know things well enough so that you can have a long form conversation. A lot of people will struggle with that. And so that's number one, but not everybody listens to podcasts, and not everybody wants to listen to anything for an hour. And so you also have to be able to communicate your points on Twitter. And that's not great, but it is something. And that's what some people follow you on. So communicate something there. Instagram is probably one of my favorites because I can kind of do everything on Instagram, and I have the biggest following there. And, you put out videos, I put out explainer videos, and I'm not giving you a 20-minute, informational episode on issue X, but I'm trying to do it in a couple minutes and go a little deeper than just Democrats are bad. And they want to kill jobs. Well, why do they want to kill jobs? Let's just explain it a few layers deep, just a few more layers. And that's what people are looking for. And it's been very successful. And so I can spend my time doing that, which is also my job, because my job is to communicate. I can spend my time doing that and being creative with that and being good at that. And that takes away all those hours of fundraising that I have to do. It's not like I don't do any. And I'm like one of the number one fundraisers in the house.
Oh, so that's part of the reason you can get away with it, because what you're doing is very effective.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me about this youth summit, more about the youth summit and how that got started and why you do it and what you saw there. I know I did this Q&A, but my staff give me things and I do it, and I don't know the context as much as I would like to, especially with something like that.
I wish you could have been there.
Me too.
Love to get you there next time. We'll do it every year. And it's a very cool thing. If you're a conservative, you know that one of the biggest electoral problems you have is young people. And this isn't all that surprising. I think the promises of the utopian left are very endearing to a young person, and to a certain extent, you'll never escape that. But my goal is to give them the tools of conservatism. There's a lot of youth groups out there. You're probably familiar with. You've spoken at a Turning Point event, and maybe you've dealt with YAF too. So Young America Foundation, both good organizations, but this isn't what I'm doing. I'm not doing either one of those things. I'm trying to do a mix of both, because what YAF does is very intellectual. Like it's Ben Shapiro's pretty much their main headliner. Of course, Ben well. And so it's a bit more intellectual. There's not a lot of fanfare to it. It's just somebody on a stage and let's give a speech and let's answer some questions. And then you got something like Turning Point, which is a very high production. It's like a kind of a concert, like very much a rally. And what I try to do is a mix of both. So because I want to give you that experience. And I'm also 100% only focused on high school and college kids. So that's, you have to have an age limit. And so mine was 24. And I want to give them both intellectual tools that they can come away with, which is why I invite somebody like you to speak. And I want to also give them a good time, because I know I need to grab their attention. I need them to have fun. I need them to come away with an experience that they're not going to forget. And so we just had, it's a high production, fun event. And there's even a concert in the middle of it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with you conservative types, because you've got comedians now and you've got entertainment, and you're talking to young people. It's like, this is very strange. So hey, I've got a question about this issue of young people, because I've been talking to lots of conservative folks in Canada, because we have a conservative party and they're about as popular as our government, but not quite. And I've mentioned that I believe that their fundamental problem is that they can't figure out what they have to offer to young people. But it seems to me that what they have to offer is this notion. It's something like paternal encouragement. It's like, we really think you could be something if you behave properly in some essential sense. And we really believe in you as an individual in alignment with your traditions more than we believe, let's say, in the utopian promises of government per se as a problem-solving enterprise. And I think one of the things I've really noticed, and I get a lot of letters from people, is that, and this just about killed me when I was on my tour, because I'm offering people words of encouragement as individuals, and I had no idea how much starvation there was for that. And that was particularly true of young men, but not only true of them. And that is something conservatives can say, is like, look, we really believe in you. And we are skeptical of the claims that big organizations per se, especially government, can do what they promise. Whereas you as an individual, especially if you get your act together, man, you're really something deadly. So in the best possible sense. And that's a really attractive message, especially to young people now, because they don't really hear that. Yeah. They hear that they're despoilers of the environment. Or some guy wrote me, I just opened his letter today. He'd been in prison, he'd been suicidal. He wasn't a good guy, and he sorted his life out when he was 30. He said he encountered my lectures, and he stopped regarding himself as intrinsically, like an intrinsically bad despoiler of the planet, something like that. I'm not exaggerating, and he had no idea that maybe there was something to the idea that he had intrinsic value, and he quit all his idiocy, stopped drinking and stopped taking drugs, and he got married, he had a kid, and he's got a job, and conservatives have something to offer young people, and they just don't know how to get it across. There's something about what you're doing that does that. It's partly why I'm so interested in talking to you. And why do you think the turning point thing is working? Exactly.
It's different than what I do. I mean, what Turning Point does, what Charlie does, is they just were the first ones to give conservative kids a place to go hang out with each other, frankly, which is pretty.
Hi, I'm Father Mike Schmitz, and you're listening to the Bible in a Year podcast, where we encounter God's voice and live life through the lens of Scripture. The Bible in a Year podcast is brought to you by Ascension. Using the Great Adventure Bible timeline, we'll read all the way from Genesis to Revelation, discovering how the story of salvation unfolds and how we fit into that story today. This is day 12. Let's get started. Let's keep going. Actually, man, oh man, this has been a incredible gift. I am reading today from Genesis chapter 24, just that one chapter from Genesis, and also from Job chapter 13 and 14. We're getting closer and closer to the middle of the book of Job, and that is going to be kind of a crux moment. We're also reading from Proverbs chapter 2, verses 16 through 19. I'm reading from the Revised Standard Version, the Catholic edition, and I'm using actually the Great Adventure Bible from Ascension. If you want to follow along in your own Bible, whether it's the Great Adventure Bible or whatever Bible you have around, you can download your Bible in a Year reading plan by visiting ascensionpress.com/Bible in a Year. Again, that's ascensionpress.com/Bible in a Year. You can also sign up. You can subscribe to this podcast. Just click that little subscribe button and you'll get an update every single day. You can also sign up for our email list by texting the word Catholic Bible to the number 33777. That's Catholic Bible to 33777. As I said, we are reading today from Genesis 24. We get to kind of follow new people. Abraham is still around, but Isaac is now around as well. And we get to see what his story is and how this story unfolds, that God had promised to bless the world through Abraham and his descendants. And so now we're going to meet some of the descendants. We go on to the story of the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah in Genesis chapter 24. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his house, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac." The servant said to him, "Perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came?" Abraham said to him, "See to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and swore to me, 'To your descendants I will give this land,' he will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there." So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master, and he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, grant me success today, I beg you, and show mercy to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the maiden to whom I shall say, 'Please let down your jar that I may drink,' and who shall say, 'Drink, and I will draw water for your camels,' let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown mercy to my master." Before he had done speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar upon her shoulder. The maiden was very fair to look upon, a virgin whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, "Please, give me a little water to drink from your jar." She said, "Drink, my lord." And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "I will draw water for your camels also until they have done drinking." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw and drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. When the camels had done drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half a shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels and said, "Tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to lodge in?" She said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." She added, "We have both straw and food enough and room to lodge in." The man bowed his head and worshipped the Lord and said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his mercy and his faithfulness towards my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman." Then the maiden ran and told her mother's household about these things. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran out to the man to the spring. When he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, and when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, "Thus the man spoke to me," he went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, "Come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and that place for your camels." So the man came into the house, and Laban ungirded the camels, and gave him straw and food for the camels, and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then food was set before him to eat, but he said, "I will not eat until I have told my errand." He said, "Speak on." So he said, "I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become great. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, men servants and maid servants, camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and to him he has given all that he has. My master made me swear, saying, 'You shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell, but you shall go to my father's house and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son.' I said to my master, 'Perhaps the woman will not follow me.' But he said to me, 'The Lord before whom I walk will send his angel with you and prosper your way, and you shall take a wife for my son from my kindred and from my father's house. Then you will be free from my oath when you come to my kindred, and if they will not give her to you, you will be free from my oath.' I came today to the spring, and I said, 'O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, if now you will prosper the way which I go, behold, I am standing by the spring of water. Let the young woman who comes out to draw, to whom I shall say, "Please give me a little water from your jar to drink," and who will say to me, "Drink, and I will draw for your camels also," let her be the woman whom the Lord has appointed for my master's son." Before I had done speaking in my heart, behold, Rebekah came out with her water jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the spring and drew. I said to her, "Please let me drink." She quickly let down her jar from her shoulder and said, "Drink, and I will give your camels drink also." So I drank, and she gave the camels drink also. Then I asked her, "Whose daughter are you?" She said, "The daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him." So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her arms. Then I bowed my head and worshipped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me by the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. Now then, if you will deal loyally and truly with my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left." Then Laban and Bethuel answered, "The thing comes from the Lord. We cannot speak to you bad or good."
To me, that's what it is. So what she's done for me is give me another level explosion of love in our life, which I didn't think there'd be more than what we already share in our family here. And she's given me a chance to renew and look at life through her eyes, which are very special eyes. When someday when she's out there meeting people, they'll see she's one of those people when somebody comes to the house and she stares in their eyes for like 20 minutes and doesn't break. She freaks people out. She's like this little Buddha. And, but her presence is extraordinary. And I know every parent thinks their kid is amazing, and I'm sure there's some of that that's going on here. But I don't know. It's a long answer to say she's a gift. And what's different today for me is I have more to give. And what's different is I'm not forcing those gifts. I'm witnessing and appreciating and shaping where the shaping maybe perceives to be valuable. But I want to make sure this young woman feels loved beyond compare, but also has a sense of responsibility to life, that I'm here not just to get things, I'm here to give things. If we accomplish just those two things in our daughter, between the three of us, I think we'll have done something really beautiful for her life, and most importantly, the lives that she'll touch in whatever form that is, whatever gift she brings to this world.
Well, if her consciousness has invited your witness to be here now and take in more of the grace of her isness, I think that's really beautiful for you, Tone. So
thank you. She slowed me down, too.
That's what I mean. I was just going to say, I think for you to be able to appreciate and to admire and to watch her unfold.
Yes.
And to watch her flower. I know from my own perspective, there's nothing more beautiful.
I agree,
and I
honey.
see that in you. I watch you just noticing and appreciating. And I think that's ever so lovely. And thanks for sharing, Tone. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm her biggest fan, along with the two of you.
I love the excitement that people can hear and the passion about this girl dad we have here. It's very excited about it. If you're scratching your head of why this kid has three parents, you're going to have to listen to the Mother's Day episode. That's all I just want to throw that in there.
I'm very grateful to you, Mary B. This has been a long road. Sage and I together, when we first met, talked about having children, but her doctor told her she would never have a child in a million years. And then we had the experience of pregnancy and loss. But for both of us, it's like, how are we going to make this happen? And we didn't want a stranger. And ironically, if you don't know the story, I won't give it all out, but plant a seed in case you didn't listen. You have to listen to Mother's Day podcast to find out how our dear Mary B came in to be our family and to be the third parent of this child by giving her the grace of a way to be born and grow and be brought into birth. So I'm grateful beyond compare. And all you fathers out there, and I don't know if you're hard on yourself or not. Most men are hard on themselves. Women may not know that, but most men are hard on themselves. As hard as you think you can be on a man, most men of any sense of responsibility and have any child are hard on themselves. Some of them try to hide it. Some trying to push it away because they don't know how to deal with it. But I'd say to you, wherever you are, pick yourself up and decide what you want to be now. How do you want to be as a dad now? And if you're not a dad right now, is there someone who needs your brotherhood or your fatherhood, needs your mentoring? Because every one of us has lessons. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be a certain way. Everyone who's lived a life has had life experiences that are worth sharing if they're coming from a place of not trying to teach, but they're coming from a place to try to love and serve and just share. I think most men live lives where they don't share as deeply as maybe some women do sometimes. That may be too big a generalization, it probably is. But I would say as an overall generalization, men keep their emotions closer. But they'll bring them to one special person that they have total trust and respect for, that knows that nothing they say they'll be judged by, and who knows that they've lived life And so not only do they not judge them, but they understand and they can share other perspectives. And that's all I think we can offer each other as brothers, as men, as fathers on the path. And for your children, you're going to screw up. No, there are no professional parents. That's why I'm in the business I'm in. But I hope this conversation has been stimulating of you in some way. And I know the ladies are going to take it from here and share with you a woman's perspective, because both of them have extraordinary fathers that have shaped them powerfully. So thanks for letting me appear on the Tony Robbins podcast. Sage Robbins and
you could talk to our
Mary.
assistants, see if they do the scheduling, if you might be able to come. We'd love to have you back. Maybe we can make this a regular thing.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tone.
Love to you.
Love to you. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy.
I think we could tell folks about Tone. And has anyone listening seen the show This Is Us? It just ended. And we often watch that show. And Tony will be the first one every time, as soon as the credits roll, that says, well, they got me again. And he's always in tears at This Is Us.
True.
So if you're listening and you think you know who Tony Robbins is, do you know that he's also the softie, the warm father, the guy who cries at pretty much every episode of This Is Us?
So true.
A few weeks ago, Sage and I sat right here and we recorded an episode, a conversation in honor of Mother's Day. And we vowed at the end of that episode that we would do the same for dear old dads. So here we are, coming up on Father's Day. And we would like to send some flowers and some homage and some respect and admiration for father energy.
Absolutely. Well, as when we spoke about motherhood, it went larger than motherhood. It was the attributes of the divine feminine. And, I feel that today is really a representation of the divine masculine, which once again, this is within all of us, whether you're male or female. We have both attributes and we have access to both within us.
Tony often says, if I want you to think about your father, all I have to do is talk about mine. So I would love to ask you, and to start, Sage, by saying, you sure have an awesome dad.
I certainly do.
And I wonder if you could tell people a little bit about him and what makes him him, and the attributes and fundamentals of father energy, both in your own father and universally, to get us started.
My daddy, my pops is legit.
He sure is.
He is just a real embodiment of such character and integrity and absoluteness. And as much as he has strength, he has such a tender heart. He's so dear. And his presence, even though as we were growing up through life, he worked multiple jobs supporting the family. And even if he wasn't physically present, my father's presence was always felt. One of the things I enjoy and so appreciate about my daddy is I can walk into a room and we can just make eye contact and no words even exchanged, and there's so much said in that space. Even today I called and I was like, hey, Pops. And he's like, hey, sweetheart, how you doing? He's like, here's your mother. That's it. Here's
a strong silent type, your dad.
He is.